Hello and welcome to the Podquest of Bread. Tonight we are going to talk about 10 years and what 10 years means not only for our generation, millennials, not only for Zoomers, but also every generation that will follow us and the irreparable harm that could be caused in 10 years. So I decided that tonight I was going to talk about climate change, and I was going to talk about the issues facing the climate. I was going to talk about the future of the world and the health of the world, and therefore the health of us as a species. The reason I want to talk about this, of course, links back to what's going on right now. First off, in California, you are witnessing California literally burning to the ground. Earlier this year, we witnessed Australia burning to the ground. We've seen Brazil burning to the rainforests in Brazil burning to the ground. We have seen literally forest fires all over the globe increasing at a shocking rate. We're watching temperatures in places that are normally hot and arid climates exceeding 120 degrees. We are witnessing temperatures raise above 120 degrees in places they have never reached those rates at. We are seeing hurricanes in the Gulf and on the Atlantic coasts increase in intensity and frequency. Just a couple weeks ago, we had two occurring at the very same time in the Gulf of Mexico. We're witnessing tornadoes become more damaging and exist in places at levels that they have never before. We are seeing the oceans rise, the reefs die, the corals die, and we are witnessing the erosion of the glaciers in the Arctic. All of these things are coupled together, and they are pointing to a common issue, and they're pointing to a common problem that we have to solve in just 10 years. In fact, less than 10 years, because we're already 8 months or 9 months through year number 1 of this. The World Health Organization, along with the UN, stated that, then this was a few years ago, if we don't solve global warming and limit the increase in temperature by no more than 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030, we will see irreparable harm occur to the world as a whole. Harm that we will not be able to walk back. Harm that we will have zero power to stop. From this, we'll see increases in poverty. We'll see increases in death. If you think the hurricane issue we have right now is bad, if we don't stop this by 2030, we are going to see an even worse issue and compounding issue with hurricanes, tornadoes, flash flooding, forest fires, the melting of the glaciers, the death of ocean species, the rising of the sea levels, and the erosion of the coasts around the world. If we do not stop the increase in temperature by 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030, we are literally going to witness everything that we are already seeing occur and know is linked to global climate change. We are going to see it increase massively. You think breaking 120 degrees as a record temperature just outside of Los Angeles was interesting this week? Imagine what it would be if that temperature exceeded 130 or even 135 degrees at days. Imagine the impact as more and more glaciers just melted away. The impact on the species, the impact on the environment. What if more forest fires engulfed the Amazon rainforest? Remember, the Amazon rainforest absorbs more carbon dioxide than any other forest in the world. And we are witnessing its erosion, not only through logging, but just straight through forest fires. Imagine what will happen as we witness California burning to the ground more and more, releasing more and more pollutants into the skies. It's a very scary thought. So how do we stop this? And how do we move forward with limiting the rise in temperatures in the world to 1.5 degrees Celsius before 2030? The way we solve this and the way we fix this is not going to be pleasant for a lot of people. It's not going to be enjoyable for 90% of the people. And I'm going to focus right here on the United States because that's generally what this podcast relates to, is current events within the United States and what the United States is doing globally. So how do we stop that here in the United States? I have a few words here that are going to make some people cringe. And it's this fancy little document. It's 14 pages long. And it was instantaneously a point of contention with a lot of conservatives. And it's this package named the Green New Deal. It's this package that kind of outlines what we're facing, what we're looking at, what needs to be done, and it just falls a little short of how we're going to implement it. But there are some things to unpack within it. And I feel that right now talking about it's perfect, especially when there's a new party on the horizon who is talking about actually implementing this. Because let's be real, Republicans and Democrats in general, it's not in their favor to implement something like this. It's not in their favor to bring forth some of these ideas into reality. And it's not in their favor because the corporations have bought and sold them. But let's talk about some stuff. The first thing that the Green New Deal really brings to light is that our reliance on fossil fuels has to change. Our reliance on burning of fossil fuels needs to change massively. And that's a painful thought because though electric vehicles are becoming commonality here in the United States, even those, in my opinion, don't go far enough because electric vehicles with lithium-ion batteries require mining that requires fossil fuels. They require mining that actually releases pollutants. What we really are doing is we're putting a little Band-Aid on a wound here. See, we need to end the reliance on fossil fuels, but to do that, we also must come up with a sustainable alternative. Happens to be a company out there called Nikola that uses hydrogen in order to attempt to create a zero-emission vehicle that doesn't use lithium-ion batteries. It's a phenomenal idea. We need to put more research into it and start really backing away from fossil fuels. Now, of course, everybody gets a little shaky. Everybody gets a little concerned when I say that because big oil, they get upset about this. There's lots of jobs in oil. Oil production is a massive employer in the United States, whether it's on pipelines or oil rigs, whether it's the guys, the folks operating oil tankers, or the folks driving trucks over road carrying oils and gasoline. These people, as we walk back the fossil fuel industry, suddenly will become jobless. And I'm going to hit on this because there's certain things that I'm going to talk about that would actually create more jobless claims, more issues with employment, and there's a way to solve it if you actually look at this logically. So we start to step away from fossil fuels. We start to invest in vehicles that use a renewable source of energy and don't use materials that require these filthy mines. I could do a video later on lithium-ion battery mines if you would like. Leave a comment below. Now, some other things that we have to do. When we're doing this, we also have to look at fundamentally changing how we live, what we wear, what we consume. Because there's certain things that we do on a daily basis and things that we interact with. Plastic pens, manufactured paper. These things are items which require pollutants in order to be made. So we have to start looking towards things like hemp. We have to start looking to alternative materials that will help us ensure that the manufacturing of the products that we need to operate in a day-to-day society aren't harmful to the environment. We have to look towards recycling. We have to look towards things that are going to ensure that this planet's survivable for the future. Now, I talked about moving away from fossil fuels. And of course, this would create massive jobless claims. This would create a system where people would be being put out of work in the coal mines, in oil industries, all over the world, refineries. We are talking about a massive issue that will absolutely cause a lot of people to lose their jobs. Now, this is where the Republicans tend to carry the script and go off on their talking points of, the Democrats and the left, they want to get rid of your jobs. They want to get rid of the coal industry. Blah, 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 blah. This is where the true left, the left that's actually talking about this, this is where we swoop in. See, as a part of prepping for something like the Green New Deal, a very strong system to both support the people that are starting to lose their jobs and then also provide education for them to shift into the new industries needs to be set up. Before you can walk back fossil fuels in the United States, you first have to set up the systems to support those that are going to, one, lose their jobs, and then two, how to re-educate them to be able to work within the new expanding industries. There's a statistic that I saw out there for people as a comparison of the workforce. In the oil industry, generally, for every one person required to do a job there, in renewable energy, there's two people required to do that job. Whether that's someone that's a technician on a solar panel grid or a technician on windmills. By the way, they don't cause cancer. So we look at this, we need to set up the structures in order to support them while retraining them, and then put them out in the field working on these new systems. Within that, we need to be paying them what they are worth. We need to pay them a sustainable living wage. We need to pay them the value of their labor. See, what's beautiful about the Green New Deal, and I'll give it this, and again, it's just a document. It's just something saying, hey, there's an issue and we need to talk about it. But what's beautiful about it is it opens the doors in order for us to be able to discuss other things like affordable wages, like providing training for people so they have better jobs, like, I don't know, supporting them if they lose their jobs. Pretty simple. But within this, we then start to look towards a world where our children and their children will have a world to live in. Because if we don't fix this in 10 years, if we don't stop temperatures rising by 1.5 degrees Celsius in 10 years, their world will look drastically different than ours. Their world will not appear like ours. A friend of mine today put up a rather long post. He's a left libertarian, in which he was talking about the general ideas within libertarian circles of, well, we just let the corporations take care of that. We need to get the government out of it. And he was trying to figure out the relationship between the non-aggression principle and solving climate change. And in it, he talked about how he's scared of a future where the only habitable place in the United States was somewhere towards the center of the country, where the last areas that his daughter could seek refuge are. And I'll play off that. If I were to have children, I don't want them to have to experience a world where Montana is the only place that they can seek refuge. I don't want them to experience a world where going to certain places can cause a exposure to sunlight to radiation from the sun that would cause cancer. I don't want them to go to places where just being outside could cause heat stroke in minutes and it's impossible to enjoy. I want them to be able to enjoy the world that I have right now, because the world I have right now may not be perfect, but it is enjoyable. And to do that, we have to stop this from occurring. We have this 10 years to do more for our children, our grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren, and so on and so forth, than we could ever dream of doing. We have 10 years to stop playing the games and labeling attempts to fix this stuff as socialist or communist or un-American, unpatriotic, and just put our nose to the grindstone and make it occur. Because this world isn't going to fundamentally change in a way that could affect me. But my great-great-grandchildren, that's who I want to still have a world. So, 10 years. The Green New Deal. Start talking about it. Let's make a change. Stay beautiful, humans.